Hi, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 6th, 2025, and our friend Andrei Martyanov is back with us. Welcome back, Andrei.
My pleasure.
Let's get started, Andrei, with Donald Trump's surprise for most of us about Gaza and the way that he talked about Gaza. Right after those talks, the Russia's ambassador to at the UN, Russia ambassador at the UN commented on what Donald Trump was talking about. Here is what he said, Andrei.
Ambassador?
Donald Trump is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu right now, and Donald Trump.
He never reported to me yet.
No comment, sir. Ambassador, Donald Trump is saying that Palestinians must be resettled out of Gaza to live somewhere else.
I think this is out of question. The Palestinians do not want it. The world community doesn't want it. And you cannot forcefully resettle someone somewhere. The Palestinians suffered so much injustice in their existence that this one, on top of all the others, will be a real shame.
Ambassador, he says Trump has been saying that it's impossible to live in Gaza now. He's even saying even for the Israeli will be
We were
impossible.
told by our briefers today that Palestinians vote with their feet. They return back to the places where they used to live, despite all the damage that has been done, despite all the rubble that is around them. They want to live in the place which they belong, which they consider their home.
Andrei, here is what is the Russian policy on Gaza. Well, first of all, how did you find the way that Donald Trump was talking about the issue?
Oh no, I read it in news because it really made the news. And I mean, I have very little to add to Mr. Nebenzia and what he says. I mean, because this is just, yeah, it's really shame, honestly, that this idea was even floated, especially with this cynical overtone of, oh yeah, let's make the new Riviera or what have you. You know, there is obviously the issue of this gas and oil field next to the Gaza Strip in the Mediterranean, but this is absolute shame. And yeah, it's what is he proposing? Essentially ethnic cleansing. That's what he's proposing de facto when he says this, and this is absolutely unacceptable. And we can sit here and discuss whatever we want about the modus vivendi between Palestinians and Israel, but I mean, this is absolutely should be out of the question because it is their land and period. There's nothing to discuss here, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing, as I already stated. You commenting in addition to it is just to ruin it. You know, basically the amorality of this is so obvious and so blatant that yeah, world community essentially said, "What the hell."
Andrei, do you think that Donald Trump, the way that he's talking, both in terms of the conflict in Ukraine and in the Middle East, it seems that he wants to oversimplify the things. It's, as you remember, 24 hours for Ukraine right now, sending these people, building new houses, new buildings for settlers. Sometimes you feel that he's living in a la la land, in something like fantasy.
He always did. I mean, he is by no means an idiot. Let's, be clear about it. He's definitely, in terms of the intellectual faculties, are way above Biden. But we have to keep in mind that who he is, in human terms, he is a narcissist. It's not my opinion. When even Tucker Carlson goes out, and before he was basically fired from Fox, he was talking about, no matter, we have to, vote for him, despite the fact of him being absolutely, detached from the reality because of his narcissism, but at least he meant well. This was essentially the argument Tucker promoted. Yeah, he lives in a la la land. He doesn't understand. He may understand many things. He doesn't understand international politics, and he doesn't understand the global balance of power and how it is formed. So in this case, I mean, sometimes what he says and this whirlwind of his, executive orders since he's now 16 days and he's in the Oval Office. Not all of it is wrong, make no mistake. Some of those things are obviously designed to boost, United States in both moral and even economic terms, which I may accept. But in terms of international arena and the people who are surrounding him, again, look at this Kellogg guy, Keith Kellogg. He's just downright clown. I mean, he is parading himself as, which it's, has to be understood. These people, those American generals, they completely embarrassed U.S. military as they're presenting them as nincompoops, essentially, and so the same goes for his team. Granted that we wait for still the big ones, to be confirmed by the Congress. It's obviously Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. So, and I personally also have some hopes attached to both Tulsi and to Kash Patel. But Trump himself, he is very impulsive, very narcissistic personality to the point of the, fallacy. Complete. It's how to say it? The guy just loves, evidently, to act. As some people say, presidential. And does he understand the substance behind it? Often, especially when it comes down to international relations, he doesn't. And yeah, he is, for all intents and purposes, he is a Zionist. He is definitely beholden to Israel and to Israeli lobby. And so, what can I say? That's the result. That's what we see from him.
If you remove the name of Keith Kellogg from what he's saying, and it seems that somebody in the Biden administration is talking about the conflict in Ukraine, it doesn't, you don't see any sort of change in those rhetorics coming from the Biden administration. And I would wonder why Donald Trump would choose such a person to go after solving the situation in Ukraine.
Well, you can remember Mr. What's his name? The Mad Dog, former Secretary of Defense in first term Trump's administration, Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis. The only reason he chose him because the guy looked tough, was looking nice in uniform, and talked tough like Trump. So he recognized in himself the same BS as himself. That's the only reason. The guy was utterly unqualified. Same goes for Keith Kellogg and for the most American generals. Yes, I have to, quote Colonel Douglas McGregor. And he spoke about this a few days back at Danielle Davis deep dive. And he stated that once you hit 2 stars, the only thing you care about is not war. Is how to make yourself a millionaire. That's what it is. Keith Kellogg parades himself as absolutely incompetent hack, which he is. I mean, and so the majority of those people who, congregate evidently, including from the U.S. military, around Trump, they are people with their own interests. They are people with their own financial interests. Most of them evidently do not understand what is going on, because they don't have qualifications to understand the warfare of the 21st century. And that's what we see. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. When you remove the picture of Keith Kellogg, you have the same rhetoric of the, globalist and, American exceptionalist, which is essentially the main reason why this country, the United States, finds itself where it is today. It is militarily impotent, and that's what we have. And yeah, these are the kind of people Trump likes. Tough talking, like straight shooters, all the thing, So most of them actually went not through the even service academies. This is not to say that U.S. service academies are that good, but at least most of them went through the ROTC and officer candidate schools. That means they, from the get-go, their foundation on which their understanding of the warfare is at best shaky. And yeah, there you go. Most of them are, if you look attentively at those U.S. generals, most of them are some kind of the political science accountants, and like, what the hell, man? Where's your military engineering background? Where's your understanding of the system integrations? Things like that. It's like, no, they have not. They went through this ROTC, they got those courses, and then they went through this, training on the job type, tribal knowledge thing within Pentagon, which is not great because, Pentagon loses its wars. And here we are. That's the result. And so they go out there, they make an impression on Mr. Trump, and he likes them because they're tough talking, just, yeah, we know what they're talking about, So, and even the fact that when Trump actually copied this, from the 1970s flick pattern, his entrance and things like that, that tells you everything you need to know, essentially. Those people do not even understand what they're dealing with.
They're talking about that the peace plan, or I don't know, negotiation plan on the part of Donald Trump would be presented next week at this Munich Security Conference. I don't know, by Keith Kellogg or someone else. But after all, what is the main goal of this sort of attitude? Because if you want to negotiate, if you want to make a peace plan, you have to talk with Russia. Why? What's the necessity of putting it in the Munich Security Conference? And who's there that going to be decisive in terms of any sort of negotiations?
All PR, sheer, blowing smoke up everybody behinds, and that's the only thing, because that's the only thing they can do, because reality on the ground is such. And again, people continue to ignore what actually big-time Russian officials say, like Mr. Rybkov 2 days ago. He absolutely came out and said, no, United States wants to talk, letting them, make the, basically the first step. And they call, Washington calls Moscow, and as Mr. Peskov stated, some appropriate departments discuss with them. They want to schedule something, sure, and they call it negotiations, okay? So it's all PR, it's all ridiculous, to the point of people in Russia, they laugh at it, So, and, but they try to, make those arrangements evident in Washington to do again PR thing. They have nothing which they can offer. And as Mr. Rybkov stated, and I quote again, you have to consider the realities on the ground. And so realities on the ground is Russians are already in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, so, and even on the western bank of Dnieper. So, sure, Russia will continue to do what it's doing. That's it. All those talks, all those, it's all indeed, it's show off. It is so obvious that I don't know how else to explain.
Andrei, in your opinion, what's going on with the foreign policy of Russia? They were trying to, in the aftermath of Soviet Union, they were trying to negotiate, they were trying to understand the West and their position, but that wasn't achievable because of the West, because the West didn't want to participate in such a negotiation, in such a talk. How about right now? Is Russia getting to the point that the foreign policy says, we're done with the West. We have to find our path toward prosperity, toward a better future. How is that going on in Russia, in your opinion?
Oh, it's going on extremely well, because Mr. Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russian Federation, the permanent member of the Security Council, personal friend of Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev, and among many other things, and probably the greatest living diplomat in modern history, he was speaking to African ambassadors from Africa a couple of days, 4 days ago, I believe. He correctly stated, which, by the way, RT failed to report on that. They reported on the Russian-African relations. But the main thrust of Lavrov's discussion and statements was that, we made a mistake, strategic mistake, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And we have to learn, and we learned from this mistake. And this is not only Russian population in general hasn't been considering themselves, in this particular case, Europeans anymore for a long time now. And but now it's, as Lavrov states, and I quote, the political elite, the political class of Russia learned the hard way, and we will never repeat this mistake again. So it's over with the, it doesn't mean that Russia will not necessarily say trade, but West is the main culprit in all that. And West made its choice. It's made its mind up. And Russians have nothing to talk about with the West anymore. And yeah, if they want to, they can come to Russia. They will be mad. Yeah, they will talk, and things like that. But Russia is the self-sustaining civilization. And it is essentially at this stage is the storage, if you wish, of the best what the Western civilization provided. Now, Western civilization is not the West at all. It's just some kind of the postmodernist, post-Christian collection of the countries, and Russians have no business with them. They are Russians as people, as ethnicity, as culture are hated there by the majority of populations. It's not just political class in the Europe, especially, which or in Washington, which hates Russian gods. But for many Europeans, it's have been stated very clearly by me for the last 10 years. Russians are not just some kind of alien people. Many consider Russians to be Untermensch, subhumans. So this is the typical European attitudes which formed in the last 500 years, and there's nothing to talk about. And those people from Europe who want to live normal lives, they do migrate to Russia, and they are met with the open arms. And but it's over. There's nothing to talk about. They want to make some economic contacts. Sure, let them come and talk, but there will never ever will be the attitude which existed in 2000s, and especially in the 1990s, when Russia essentially impaled itself on the spear of these fantasies about the combined West, which at that time was fairly strong, and Russia was very weak after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So the roles actually completely reversed, and the result is we see the result, So, and today Merkel, this allegedly realist and great European politician, in reality absolutely colorless, radically mediocre personality, she stated that no, we cannot allow Russia to win. So this lady still, grieves her bike, which allegedly Soviet soldier from the Eastern Germany stole from her. So there you go. That's Europeans for you. So, and what can I say? It doesn't mean that all of them like that, but majority of population, they don't like Russians. They fear Russia. And it has been not just the recent uptick, so to speak, since the start of the special military operation. It was always the case. And why do you want to impose yourself on people who hate you? Of course you don't. So you just build the Iron Curtain. And Europe, and I proposed it for many years, that not only Russia should build the Iron Curtain, Russia should repatriate the remnants, the graves of the all Red Army soldiers and all monuments back to Russia. Europe doesn't deserve this, and whatever happens to Europe after that, Russia has no business there. Let them do whatever they want with them. If they decide to do stupid things moving towards east, well, Russia has enough wherewithal to wipe the Europe off the map. And with the United States, obviously Russia has to negotiate because and find some kind of modus vivendi, because the United States is the superpower, Europe is not.
Andrei, last night I was talking. We had a panel here with Colonel Wilkerson, Ray McGovern, and Graham Fuller, and we were talking about this attitude on the part of the West, which is so much delusional about Russia, because they think that if they somehow they can remove Putin and his administration, they can get someone better to negotiate with, to deal with. It seems that in their mind, they were still seeking for someone like Yeltsin.
Mhm.
And all of the people on the panel, they believe that in Russia, most probably Putin and Medvedev would be Putin and Sergei Lavrov are the best people to negotiate with, because if you go to Medvedev, you're just done with. Here is the question: we've learned from Tucker Carlson that the Biden administration even thought about assassinating Vladimir Putin during his administration. Do they really, when you look at the attitude on the part of the blob, on the part of the establishment, do they really believe that they can get someone better in Russia if these people are not in power?
Yeah, I mean, there is no Russia study field, viable Russian study field, legitimate Russia study field in the West, and especially in the United States. Any single professor of the Russian studies from some Ivy League, madrasa, those vocational schools, which for some reason they want to praise, is pathetic. Honestly, it's and I'm on record. I actually introduced this term. The whole Russian history was Solzhenitsyified, to the point of this is Mordor. People are grabbed from the streets, there's a gulag still. That's the level of including the American diplomats. That's pathetic. The guys are, when they speak Russian, like Strop Talbot, for example, he was an arrogant ass, but none of them understand Russian history. The fact is, they don't know. None of them know the history of the World War II. They literally just ignorant hacks. Get me any PhD in Russian studies. We'll have a wonderful conversation, and you know what? I would love to wipe the floor with all those people. So, and yes, you have this La La Land. It was formed and shaped by Soviet dissidents and white immigration. Which had all reasons to settle their accounts with the Soviet Union. As a result, they were lying through their teeth non-stop, most of them anyway. And actually, if you are people who still believe in this BS, about all this, white immigrants, and that majority of them, not all, make no mistake, there were people of the North who absolutely presented themselves as the heroic people and who rejected this, like General Denikin, for example. But majority of them supported Hitler. So it's like, and yeah, these are the type of people. And now you have the additional wave of their primarily Jewish immigration, which still has this, visceral hatred for Russians, and they, for whatever reason, ranging from the Trotskyism being smashed by Stalin, and Trotskyism, while not entirely completely Jewish, there were all kinds of people there. But that's what they are settling accounts with. Some of them, they still remember pogroms. And so, that's the type of people who wrote the history of Russia. And those few real scholars, there are still some left, let's say in the United States. I don't think so anybody is left in the United Kingdom. So whenever they write their objective and, the thing with the facts, which are based on their extensive historiography, so to speak, and archival data, it's immediately debunked, like, oh, you're a Putin agent, or you're Stalinist, communist, It's like, okay, sure. Well, and again, there is not a single professor, as there are not a single guy in CIA, and there is not a single professor in, for example, any kind of the Ivy League school, starting from Stanford. Look at the clown Michael McFaul. He passes in the United States for the Russian scholar. So that's who they are. They continue to present this BS. They continue to talk about this, like said Colonel McGregor, like 1 million Red Army soldiers executed in the, the barbarian troops and things like that, of that nature. Sure, and their problem, of course, although this so cabal of the pseudo scholars is primarily they're mathematically incompetent. They do not understand if to follow their logic, and Solzhenitsyn logic, for example, which is strange. Well, he used his data from the SS collaborator, Professor Kurganov, and his son Kurganov built the house for Solzhenitsyn in Vermont. So you can see yourself already, this is a beautiful combination of all kinds of the delinquents, yeah, if you follow those numbers, then I shouldn't exist. Neither should have been my parents, because by that time, Russians at Ethnos should have been dead. But mathematics is not strong forte in in the United States, and especially for those professors who have those as H.L. Mencken beautifully stated, morons with PhDs. This is exactly what American Russian study field is, precisely what it is.
Andrei, one of the things that Zelensky said recently, he mentioned that most of the money that went to Ukraine was it got back to the United States, to the pocket of the military-industrial complex. And here is the question: if we assume that they wanted this war in Ukraine, and they tested all their weapons, including HIMARS and all of these fancy weapons that they said that it's going to be game changer. If you remember those days that they were sending these weapons to Ukraine, it's a game changer. We're going to destroy. It was all about that. Was that a good, I'm talking about a good propaganda, good type of advertisement for the military-industrial complex, the war in Ukraine?
Actually, it was a complete disaster for the United States military-industrial complex, because those weapon systems have been paraded, and we're talking about not some 1 to samples. We're talking about massive influx of, let's say, there's still not exact count of how many, at least 35, I believe the last data was, of Patriots have been obliterated. We have tens upon tens of the Abrams tanks, so all kinds of weapon systems which were dismal in the real war. Most of what is designed by, not all, but most of what is designed by the U.S. military industrial complex is essentially, it's expeditionary imperial force, police force. It's good to fight Iraqis, for example. Even under certain conditions that you have to be able to be allowed to, get your forces together in the assembly area, train them, then kind of start to deploy them. The real wars are not like that, and and this was a complete embarrassment. So, as I am on record, you can quote me, United States lost the arms race, and I was writing about it already 10 years ago. It's just that it took the large combined arms war to demonstrate to it that United States stuck technologically and operationally in the 1990s. So, and it doesn't matter what they do, you cannot change this, because you need to have a completely different approach and view on the warfare, which shouldn't be American, because if you have the American view on the combined arms and the real war, it is how to put it, it is all designed for the most favorable conditions against the third world opponents, period. United States Army is not designed to fight for the modern war, especially in conditions which are not favorable. And as the result, the tragedy is not technology only. Technology is fine, but in terms of being embarrassed and basically humiliated. The problem is, and that's not easy to change, it is doctrine. It is how the United States views war, and it's not just after the collapse of the Soviet Union. United States was humiliated in Vietnam. And that was without even encountering, for example, Soviet teams, Soviet crews, for example, they were flying in Korea, MiG-15s. So this were 99.99% Vietnamese who took care of it, granted with the support of, Soviet Union. They defeated United States and the best it could throw, and also under the most favorable conditions. And here you have a completely different set of circumstances, and these people still believe that somehow all those junky weapons, as Mr. Semyonov, Lieutenant General Semyonov, first deputy commander of Russian Aerospace Forces, who stated about the Patriot PAC-3, said, forget about it defending anything. It cannot defend itself. And this is, all those HIMARS, all those MLRSs, all those ATACMS, all those things. And even without the full data, which much of it is classified, of course. But whatever is already pouring into the public sphere, well, I have my also some sources which also not quite public, but they do not operate with the classified data, but they know things. Yeah, it's a disaster. And that is why when they now have this situation, they may continue to produce those Abrams tanks, all those PAC-3s or THAADs, if you wish, whatever they have. It's no use in the real war.
Doubling their defense budget, or from 2 to 5%, does it mean that they would receive more weapons, more, I don't know, what does it mean for the defense of Europeans?
Europe is even more behind the United States in the matters of defense, and with the exception of France, which has independent, albeit small, nuclear deterrent, most of it is, what is downright junk. If you look at the state of the Bundeswehr or, the United Kingdom army, or so-called army, which cannot even assemble the proper armored brigade, with all those Challenger tanks, which is junk essentially, So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sure, they can continue. You have to have R&D. You have to have cutting-edge R&D, which is capable to keep up with your enemies, for example. First, they don't have numbers. They don't have economies which can do that. Rain metal may thump itself into chest whatever it wants, but the problem is, as we already know, they have now the energy prices 3 times higher than they used to have. So good luck for them producing anything. And it's not just about money. There are technical and industrial aspects which are completely ignored by this bunch of the morons with MBAs, which are graduated from all kinds of those, vocational schools, Ivy League and Sorbonne or what have you, who do not understand that it's not just about money. You can print whatever you want or try to spend it. But first, your population will become even poorer, which is coming. It's happening as we speak. Europe will be poor, and that's not the question of if, it's just a matter of when. They will be poor. They will try to rebuild something, but you cannot rebuild something when you do not have a cutting-edge technologies. Even the European, and BAE, corporate people say that to get even to the hypersonic weapons, it takes another 20 years. Well, do you know what the Russians will up in 20 years? So there you go. It's like everything changed. Everything changed in terms of the conventional combined arms warfare. I'm not talking about nuclear. Nuclear, obviously. West is not going to overcome now this gap or lag, and it will only widen. And this has everything to do with the overall systemic crisis of the Western liberalism and the way it approached and financialized itself. The workshop of the world is not in Europe or in the United States. It's in China and in general in the Eurasian land mass. In terms of weapons, as I already stated, United States just absolutely pales in comparison to what Russians produce and where they are heading. Europe doesn't even register there. The only thing they have is, they have all those single, few things of the legacy systems. No matter how beautiful they look, they are all legacy. They are not survivable on the modern battlefield.
Do they produce missiles in Europe, Andrei?
Yeah, they do. They produce all those, Storm Shadow Scalps, for example, like these land attack missiles. For some reason, French produce their 300-kilometer range missile, which is capable of carrying nuclear warhead, and for some reason they call it strategic, which it is not, albeit it can carry nuclear weapon. The French have their own very advanced ballistic missile program, which are not primarily, only for their ballistic missile submarines. They produce things here and there, some, like air-to-air missile, or like, French produce their Exocet and things like that. These are all legacy systems. It's like polishing the cannonball in hope that it will fly further. It's like no matter how you polish it, the cannonball is the cannonball. You need to have the breakthrough technologies and the detection, combat, command and control, communications, and then you have to have the kinetic means. And kinetic means, they do not even have supersonic anti-shipping missile. NATO doesn't have it. They have plans to produce it. Oh gosh, this thing has been in plans for who knows when. Everything they do turns out to be worth its weight in gold. When you look also the United States and the result of it is they just cannot fight. Europe is done. Europe is done as the center of the world ideas and the cutting edge technologies. Few things that remain, for example, like the Airbus. Okay, yeah, that's fine, but the rest of it, yeah, overpriced. Unreliable, over-engineered German cars. I mean, I looked at the Car and Driver magazine. It's the most respectable, driving automobile magazine in the United States. October 2024, just recently, the issue. Top 25 bestsellers in the United States in cars. You can find the, Japanese, of course, Toyota, Subaru, American cars, and especially trucks, of course, F-150 and things like that, and the Hyundais, not a single European or let alone German car, not a single. Top 25, and that tells you everything you need to know, because many people still believe in this German engineering. It's not German engineering, German over engineering, and they never thought that things they were doing were primarily based on the cheap energy, which was provided by Russia. Which allowed them actually to recover very much. Russians now scratching their head, and after what Merkel stated today, it's like, yeah, we shouldn't have done that, So and yeah, the lesson has been learned, and yeah, it's Europe never again will be allowed to even think about doing anything against Russia. It will be physically annihilated. And, Russia can turn all of those countries into the parking lot.
Why is it so difficult in the mind of Europeans to be independent from the United States? Because you look at Russia, it's totally independent from militarily, and right now their economy, as Putin in his last year he said that their dependence on dollar has reduced from 54% to less than 10%. I don't know, right now it's below than 10%, 5%. Here is the question: why is Europe not thinking that way? Why are not what they're not? There's so much into the rhetoric of the United States. We know that Russia, if you look at the history, Russia is no threat for Europe. They don't need to attack Europe, any European country. But it seems that in their mind, they want to believe that Russia would be their ultimate enemy. They're going to attack them. That's why they have to be dependent on the United States. What's that sort of mindset, in your opinion?
Well, Europe has no resources. Let's start with this. I mean, it has some, very few, not enough for maintaining, sustaining the standard of living which they developed and evolved into precisely, especially in 60s and 70s, and especially 70s, when this very cheap, very privileged energy started to flow from Russia. Russia sits on the more than a third world resources and everything. Soviet Union sat on largest thing, like people learn today about the rare earth minerals, which Russians own now. It's so yeah, they always lasted for this huge land with enormous resources and riches, and they always thought that Russians. It's unjust that this nation of subhumans, controls that. And this is the European mindset. Majority of them, they think like that. Majority of French, majority of Germans, majority of British, and majority of Italians. So, and as the result, you see yourself, countries, they move in a different, time frame than humans. And yeah, Europe has become the source of the two most devastating world wars in the world history. And essentially, World War One and World War Two, they are, they're twins essentially. World War Two was the continuation of the World War One, which was fought primarily for their colonial reasons. It was always about colonies. It was always exploiting the colonies and empires and to get resources, and maintain the standard of living. Suddenly, those subhumans in Russia, not only they have the best armed forces in the world, and by far they have the enormous nuclear potential, nuclear deterrent, which can wipe out Europe in about 20 minutes. And they are desperate. United States is behind the ocean. United States has its own large nuclear deterrent, and United States is poised to shove its military toys down the European throat. Europeans will be made, as for example was made the Royal Netherlands Air Force. They will be, forced to get F-35s. Those Abrams, when the United States will try to restore the production of those things and all those, other things. So this is what is this all about. It's about profit. They never thought about themselves in a proper way in terms of diplomacy. And as a result, that's what we have. We had the whole 20th and 21st century to observe it. Some people are still alive, strange as it may sound, who remember World War One. They're very old people, but they do remember it. So we look at the few generations who observed this process of the self-immolation of Europe, which also marked itself by the atrocities unseen in the human history. And then we have this situation with the United States, which is essentially stolen valor. It went after in the World War II, after Red Army did pretty much most of the heavy lifting. And they say, yeah, well, great. It is. The United States actually profited greatly from the World War II. And yeah, we have Bretton Woods and things of this nature. And for a number of years, number of decades, they were able to maintain this, type of the hegemony and control of as the Romans wanted to control Greeks, which they did, maintaining the Greek tradition and things like that. So did Americans with Europe. It was if America was considered to be a Rome, Europe was Rome's Greek quarter, essentially. That's what they wanted, to maintain this culture and all that thing. It's gone now. It's over. And then suddenly America is not Rome. It's something else altogether. Okay. And Europe is done. And they are done. And whatever they want to do now, again, their ideas about going east are, as already stated, if Paris and Berlin and London want to cease to exist, Russians can do it even conventionally. Forget about doing it in nuclear way. So that's the difference. And they can suffer. They can feel desperate. They can exclaim and throw their hands, in the air. But good old colonial imperial Europe mindset was always there, and it came back, but everything changed, and they are simply not fit for their economy and their paradigm of the development of the humanity in the 21st century. And in the end, they will be poor. They are already becoming poor. If you look attentively at what is happening in UK or in Germany, forget about those things. And things will get much worse. So we're talking about like much, much worse to the, if not third world, there's something like second world, So, and that's where they're going right now. And it is inevitable. It cannot be stopped.
Looking at the United States and the reason why Donald Trump got elected in the United States, MAGA, Make America Great Again. If we assume that the people who voted for Donald Trump want a better position for the United States, do you think that Donald Trump can achieve that, can reduce the gap between the East and the West, because the East is just going and they're thinking of trades and improving their economy, while in the United States, we are still talking about the wars, the continuation of the wars, and this little war in that part of the world, that one. It seems it doesn't that much influence the mindset on the part of the establishment.
American establishment is highly illiterate in the matters of the real geopolitical balance. And yeah, it's very uncultured. If you look at those people from the Council of Foreign Relations or Mr. Trump, it's their level. People voted for Trump, not, make America great again, which is impossible, but at least the United States has the chance to survive as the unified nation and to preserve the degree of what we all love about United States. United States greatness doesn't go from its military exploits, which are actually rather tame and not impressive, or United States greatness came from the entrepreneurial spirit and Bill of Rights. This is the thing which makes United States great. Europe doesn't have it. United States does. This is the only, we can say Western country which has these guarantees, constitutional guarantees. And people voted for Trump, including because they got sick and tired of this totalitarian, suicidal cultural policies of the Democratic Party and corruption, which it essentially has eaten away pretty much the structure of the United States governance as such. Forget about democracy. Nobody buys this BS, about democracy and all that. But at least even their proper governing, United States is still ungovernable. And it will take some time to return it to some kind of the governable state. And after that, who knows? Trump was elected, although there is obviously this very enthusiastic MAGA crowd who believe that, we can go back to in the United States, 1950s, 1960s, great, the two-car garage, this American dream, everybody has a home and things like that. No, it's not happening. But at least the United States can try to arrest its complete slide into the oblivion, which of course may result in the physical disintegration of the United States. So Trump in this case is now a sort of the unifying figure, because obviously he got the popular vote. I voted for him. Our family voted for him, because the alternative would be the literally civil war and whatever the hell would be. We don't want to go there. So in this respect, he's a positive, net positive influence. But as I already stated, he cannot return greatness to America, because the greatness comes, American greatness comes not from its weapons, which are never were that great, except for the U.S. Navy, and that's it. Pretty much you need to restore the industries, manufacturing base. You have to change the education. You have to change so many things, including the social programs. Will he be able to do this? As I already stated, I'm anxious, not anxiously, but, to a degree with excitement, if you wish, wait for what happens with Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. And then, of course, we will see, if they can deliver. But yes, American governing institutions are so corrupt that it is unbelievable. United States, quote unquote, democracy is utterly corrupt, and it is oligarchy. And it was essentially uniparty. Now we'll see where Trump wants to go with it. But as I already stated, if he wants to continue to humiliate the United States, he should make the war in Ukraine his own war. And Russians will gladly oblige, as Mr. Rybkov stated 2 days ago. And so he is in a, between the rock, in a hard place, and we'll see if he is able to extricate himself. But so far, I saw not many signs in this respect, because same people, same morons who essentially drove the country into the ground, they're still around, and they still continue to, define their agenda. But again, as I already stated, United States cannot do strategies. It's not in their cultural DNA. They don't understand what it is. United States has no experience with war. I mean, they still, live with this, civil war thing and continue to try to apply absolutely irrelevant, lessons from that, and they think that it's strategy somehow, which it is not. And military science per se in the United States is not, nothing to be proud of. So they will continue to play this game, of pretending that they somehow, still this, big guy, while in reality they're a pretty small bully. And instead of playing in war, in war, the best way United States can do now is to concentrate obviously on its internal affairs and try to, reorganize society in such a way that we do not have the repeat of Obama and Biden administrations, which essentially almost destroyed the country. And we'll see. Trump only 16 days. So let's give him this famous, usually first 100 days. Let's see what he does within 100 days, and then we'll talk about it.
I think if he can withdraw the US forces in Syria, that would be a positive sign.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so that last time he tried, he was sabotaged. And those morons, they came out, those ambassadors and say, oh, no, we don't care what he says. Not only we never withdrew anything, we actually doubled, the number. This is United States, ungovernable country, oligarchy of the third world governance, which is completely corrupt. In Washington, D.C. is utterly corrupt. And apart from being corrupt, it is utterly incompetent across the board. Be them U.S. military, the CIA, FBI, as we know now, so all kinds of things. It's just unbelievable. There was a destruction of the country, which was happening in the last, I would say, 10 years at least. Well, actually more than that. Obama started it in earnest, although it was already starting even during the Clinton administration. And there we go. We look at what is happening in the country economically. It's nothing good, actually, so, but we'll see.
Yeah, I really believe that no one can be worse than Joe Biden, but let's see.
Yeah, that is why, we voted for Trump like this, so, but we voted for Trump because Democratic Party is the party of chaos, and there are many people who have to be behind bars because they committed crimes against Constitution and against the American people. And I hope that there is appropriate action on part of Trump administration to really deal with this. Will he? He talks a lot. Okay, let's face it. He talks a lot. He delivers a minuscule results, but he obviously, he knows how to play the crowd of nincompoops, which is, they believe they buy all this rhetoric and they do not look at the actions and the outcomes. But at least, he at least started this time with the border, which essentially is the critical national security issue, and it should have been addressed long time before. And this time, you have the U.S. Army, let it go at the border and defend the border of the United States. Because unlike some others, I do agree with Trump in this respect. Border is sacred for any country. So.
And they have to consider that the reality of war is changing, and these two oceans doesn't mean anything in the near future.
No. I mean, it's just a difference in terms of the flight time, as I already stated, and people do not understand sometimes the shift in the geopolitical and military technological field to such a degree that some now, like Atlantic Council, oh my God, Russia can do the, coercive conventional strikes on U.S. soil. Russians will not do this, but they can. And the United States can do nothing about it. United States can literally is defenseless. So, and when I explain it to many people, still cannot grasp this whole thing, including military people, like how? Well, really simple. Do you understand what the range of, for example, Zircon 3M22 is, and that it's Mach 10 plus weapon? Good luck trying to detect, let alone shoot it down. And of course, it can fly both conventionally and in the nuclear variant. So yeah, things change dramatically, and they will continue to change in this direction. And that is basically the foundation on which the new world order already emerged. We are living in the multipolar, or polypolar, as some people want to call it, moment. There are several polars of power. Most important three of them are China, Russia, and the United States. And they better get busy finding modus vivendi. But it is entirely up to the United States to define how it wants to go down in history as, sensible country which wins, or it's going to be humiliated, and then the collapse and decomposition, essentially the disintegration. So we are at this, fork in the road.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrei, for being with us today. Great
My
pleasure
pleasure.
as always.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.